Helping people find affordable housing can be a challenge across the state and here in Western Massachusetts. I sat down with Peter Gagliardi, the president and CEO of Wayfinders in Springfield, which offers support and other services to help people find stable housing and employment. He gave us an update on the market in the area.
Massachusetts has probably been more diligent at building affordable housing than any other state in the country. A lot of state resources have been put in to complement what's available from the federal government. And even with that, the data shows us close to 170,000 units short of the need by the folks who fall into the extremely low income category.
And when you talk about extremely low income category, senior citizens, perhaps people with a disability?
Oh, sure. In fact, the income, that the dividing line for extremely low income for a family of four is less than $30,000. So we're talking about, fairly modest incomes, and in fact, many of the people who participate in the programs that we do have incomes considerably lower than that. So for that group of people who are in that income category, we're short of the amount of housing that would be necessary to adequately house them all.
And talk about the waiting list that you have just in this area.
Well, we've long operated the so-called Section 8 program, or the Housing Choice Voucher Program as it's now called. It's a federal program. It's what we started doing in 1973. And it has a huge waiting list of some 33,000 people. We have about 1,800 people apply each year, and we're currently taking applications from that list that were originally filed with us in 2005. And here in Springfield, we have some of the lowest rents in the state, and yet we still have people who can't afford that amount. And we saw that in the huge number of families that were homeless, many of whom were housed in motels at one time. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to say we helped get them out of the motels into a more permanent housing option, or at least into a facility that was better suited to their temporary needs.
And when you talk about rents being more affordable in Springfield, what does it cost to rent a two-bedroom?
I think it's pretty hard to find much below $800 a month for a two-bedroom apartment. Obviously, whether or not the tenant pays the utilities has some influence on that. Three-bedroom apartments, $1,200, $1,300 are not unusual numbers to see, and there's not an abundance of larger apartments for larger families, so it gets increasingly difficult as you kind of go up the scale. Even at that, those rents are low enough that for many owners, once they pay their mortgage and their insurance cost and so forth, there's not a big margin in it, and it certainly doesn't produce enough income to cause people to go out and invest in new market rate housing. That's been one of the challenges. That's starting to change in Springfield, which is good from the point of view of the city's real estate market, but it's a double-edged sword because it also means that it becomes less and less affordable for the folks that have the least money.
And what are you hearing from people that you work with as far as, they're working really hard, maybe two jobs and all of their money is going to rent?
We have a lot of folks who are employed and on a single job at $12 or $13 an hour, and that's above minimum wage, but that's really what employers are hiring at now at their lower level jobs. If you do the math, once you take out, let's say you take out that $1,200 payment for your three-bedroom apartment, there's not much money left for food, clothing, transportation to your job. And when we look at the data and how that breaks out, About 26% of the people in that extremely low-income category actually are employed. Another 28% are senior citizens. 26% have disabilities that make it difficult or impossible to work. And then there's a few other categories that people might fall into.
So what is the solution that you see that would help advance the cause of those in this situation?
Well, certainly creating more affordable housing options is one of those. We work at it all of the time. We develop and manage affordable housing as well as operate a voucher program. And one of the things that we have been telling people, because if your name's on a waiting list and you have to wait 15 years for a voucher, you probably want another solution.
Right.
Your children will be grown up and out of the house by the time you actually realize the assistance. So with a lot of people, we're working with them to help them become employed. It's still tough, but people are amazingly resilient, resourceful, and in some cases they seem like magicians in being able to keep body and soul together on a relatively modest income. But we've helped over 600 people become employed rather than stay homeless over the last 6 years.
Now, Governor Baker has announced affordable housing awards to create 400 new units in the state. Is that something that you feel is sufficient, or does more need to be done?
More needs to be done. That's as much as the resources provide for. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I think part of this problem is a poverty problem, meaning folks do not have opportunities and sometimes do not have the education and skills to have a job that would allow them to pay what the market demands for rent. And it's a problem that could ultimately dampen down our economic boom that we've been going through in Massachusetts, and that hopefully is coming soon to Springfield.